The year is 1945. The world is witnessing the final throes of the most devastating conflict in human history. World War II has ravaged continents, left millions dead, and changed the course of nations forever. After years of devastating war, the Allied forces have finally broken through the iron grip of Nazi Germany. The relentless advance of the Allies from the west and the Soviet forces from the east has left the German war machine in tatters. Nazi Germany lay in ruins. Cities that once stood as symbols of power and might are now reduced to rubble. The infrastructure is shattered, and the economy is in freefall. The dream of a thousand-year Reich has crumbled in less than a decade. On May 2nd, the Soviet flag flew over the Reichstag, a symbol of their hard-fought victory. This moment marked the culmination of the Battle of Berlin, a brutal and bloody confrontation that saw the city transformed into a battlefield. Berlin, once the heart of Hitler's Reich, was now under the control of the Soviet Union. The streets that once echoed with the sounds of Nazi parades were now filled with the boots of Soviet soldiers. The city had fallen, and with it, the last vestiges of Nazi power. The city was scarred by months of intense fighting. Buildings bore the marks of relentless artillery bombardments, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and destruction. The once vibrant metropolis was now a landscape of desolation. Buildings were reduced to rubble, and streets were littered with debris. The architectural marvels that once defined Berlin's skyline were now twisted and broken remnants of their former glory. The once proud capital was now a ghost of its former self. The bustling avenues and grand boulevards were eerily silent, haunted by the memories of what once was. The spirit of the city seemed to have been extinguished by the relentless tide of war. For the people of Berlin, a new and uncertain chapter was about to begin. The war had ended, but the struggle for survival was far from over. Amidst the ruins, the survivors faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and their city from the ashes of destruction. The immediate aftermath of the battle was chaotic. Berlin was a scene of widespread destruction and human suffering. Food, water, and medicine were scarce. Millions of people were homeless, seeking shelter in bombed-out buildings or makeshift camps. The city's infrastructure was shattered. Transport, communication, and essential services had collapsed. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the recent conflict. Berliners faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives from scratch. The arrival of the Soviet troops brought mixed feelings. As the Red Army marched into Berlin, the city was a landscape of ruins and despair. The once grand boulevards were now filled with rubble, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and destruction. The sight of Soviet soldiers entering the city was both a symbol of liberation and a harbinger of new challenges. Some Berliners, exhausted by years of war, felt a sense of relief that the fighting was finally over. The end of the relentless bombing raids and the constant fear of death brought a semblance of peace to their war-torn lives. For these individuals, the presence of the Red Army meant the end of Nazi rule and the hope for a new beginning, despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. Others feared the arrival of the victors, having heard stories of Soviet reprisals. The tales of brutality and revenge that had circulated among the German population created an atmosphere of dread. Many Berliners hid in their homes, peeking cautiously from behind curtains, unsure of what the future held. The fear of the unknown and the potential for violence loomed large in their minds. The Red Army's behavior was often harsh and undisciplined, particularly in the early days of the occupation. Reports of looting, violence, and disorderly conduct were common as soldiers, driven by a mix of anger, revenge, and the chaos of war, took out their frustrations on the defeated city. The initial days of Soviet occupation were marked by a lack of control and rampant lawlessness. There were instances of looting, violence, and revenge against the German population. Homes were ransacked, personal belongings were stolen, and many Berliners faced harassment and abuse. The scars of these actions would linger long after the war had ended, adding to the already immense suffering of the civilian population. However, the Soviet military administration also began to restore order and provide basic necessities to the desperate population. Efforts were made to distribute food, offer medical aid, and rebuild essential services. Slowly, a semblance of normalcy began to return to the shattered city. The Red Army's dual role as both Conqueror and Caretaker highlighted the complexities of post-war Berlin, where survival and recovery were intertwined with the memories of conflict. The Soviet occupation brought significant political, social, and economic changes to Berlin. The Soviets established a communist government in their sector, mirroring the system in the Soviet Union. They implemented socialist policies, nationalizing industries and collectivizing agriculture. The education system was reformed to align with communist ideology. Freedom of speech and the press was suppressed. Those suspected of Nazi affiliation were persecuted or sent to labor camps. Life under Soviet rule was a stark contrast to the pre-war years. As the Cold War intensified, Berlin became a focal point of tensions between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies. In 1949, Germany was formally divided into East and West Germany, with Berlin itself also partitioned. The eastern part of the city remained under Soviet control, while the western zones were administered by the United States, Britain, and France. Berlin became a physical manifestation of the ideological divide between East and West. Section 6. Stories from the Rubble. Amidst the political upheaval, ordinary Berliners struggled to rebuild their lives. Families were torn apart, with loved ones missing or living in different sectors of the city. Many faced food shortages, unemployment, and inadequate housing. Yet, amidst the hardship, there were also stories of resilience, resourcefulness, and hope. People helped each other, sharing what little they had and finding solace in community. The human spirit, though tested, endured. Section 7. The Wall's Shadow. The division of Berlin had a profound impact on the city and its people. In 1961, the East German government erected the Berlin Wall, a physical barrier that cut the city in two. The wall became a potent symbol of the Cold War, separating families and friends and restricting the movement of people between East and West. Life in East Berlin was characterized by state control, economic stagnation, and limited freedom. Section 8. A City Reforged. Despite the challenges, both East and West Berlin underwent significant reconstruction and development during the Cold War. In the West, aided by the Marshall Plan, the city experienced an economic boom. New buildings rose from the rubble and industry flourished. East Berlin, while lagging behind economically, also saw improvements in housing and infrastructure. The city, though divided, remained a center of culture, art, and education. Section 9. Berlin today, a legacy of resilience. The fall of the Berlin Wall. In 1989 marked the beginning of a new era for the city. It was a moment that symbolized not just the reunification of Berlin, but also the end of decades of division and the beginning of a new chapter in German history. The wall, which had stood as a stark reminder of the Cold War, was finally brought down, and with it, the barriers that had separated families, friends, and a nation. Berlin was once again reunited, and Germany became a unified country. The joy and relief were palpable as Berliners from both sides of the former divide came together in celebration. The reunification was not just a political event, it was a deeply personal and emotional moment for millions of people who had lived through the separation. The streets of Berlin were filled with celebrations, tears of joy, and a renewed sense of hope for the future. The scars of the past are still visible, but Berlin has emerged as a vibrant and dynamic metropolis. The remnants of the Berlin Wall serve as a poignant reminder of the city's turbulent history, but they also stand as symbols of resilience and the enduring spirit of its people. Today, Berlin is a city that seamlessly blends the old with the new, where historical landmarks coexist with cutting-edge architecture and a thriving cultural scene. It is a city that has witnessed both the darkest chapters of history and the triumph of the human spirit. From the devastation of World War II to the division of the Cold War, Berlin has faced immense challenges. Yet each time, it has risen from the ashes, rebuilt itself, and emerged stronger. The city's ability to overcome adversity and transform itself is a testament to the resilience and determination of its people. Berlin's story is a testament to the resilience of its people and the enduring power of hope. The city's journey from a divided and war-torn past to a unified and thriving present is a powerful reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles, hope and determination can lead to a brighter future. Berlin continues to evolve, embracing its history while looking forward to new possibilities, and stands as a beacon of resilience and hope for the world.